Okay, Laura, the recording is started now. Sorry for the delay.
Oh, not a problem. So you're confirmed it started because I don't see any indication on my screen that it has.
There's a counter up in my left hand.
And this is Frank. I see the indication that it's being recorded on my screen too.
So
Okay.
do I. Yeah.
All right, very good. Well, we'll plow on forward then. Thanks everybody for your patience as we're getting started here. Again, I'm going to do roll call and ask for our council members to let us know where you are calling in from when you answer the roll call. After we get through the council members and then identify who else we've got on the call this afternoon, then I am going to ask for if there is any objection to the agenda for today, which is available both on the Water Use Advisory Council website under Eagle's supervision there, and also you should have hopefully received that by email. So I'll ask if there's any objections or any additions or changes to the agenda, and I will also ask if there are any additions or changes or objections to the minutes. So we'll do that after the roll call, if that's all right with everybody. First of all, roll call. Just let us know where you are coming in from. Margaret Bettenhausen.
Here, East Lansing.
Thank you. Tammy Newcomb. Charlie Scott. Christine Alexander.
Okemos?
Thank you. Doug Needham.
Here in Okemos.
Thank you. I got a note that James Clift is going to be on a little bit later, so Steve Kohler.
Here in Kalamazoo.
Thank you. Tom Zimnicki.
Hey, Laura, here, Lansing.
Thank you. Dave Hamilton.
I'm 200 below sea level in Death Valley, California.
Nice. Thanks for joining us. Frank Edowagishik.
I'm here. I'm in Harbor Springs, just a little above sea level, right?
Thank you. Jim Nicholas.
I am here, and I'm in Shelby, Michigan, about 5 miles from Lake Michigan, with 18 inches of beautiful snow out there and some sunshine.
Awesome. Thank you. Mike Gallagher. Pat Stetskovitz.
I'm here from Grand Haven, elevation about 620.
Thank you. Jim Johnson.
Present, Holt, Michigan.
Thank you. John Yelich.
Here, Pawpaw, Michigan, 12 inches.
Thank you. Brian Eggers.
Here in Saginaw, 520 elevation.
All right. You know that Brian Burrows is not here. Scott DeBow.
I'm filling in for Scott DeBow. This is Rachel Proctor and Michigan Center.
Thank you. Buddy Sebastian.
Sorry, this is Mike Frederick. Oh, Buddy is. Okay.
Yep, I'm here. Springport, Michigan.
All right, awesome. And Mike, where are you calling in from?
The second floor of downtown Lansing.
All right.
I don't know how many feet above sea level, though.
About that much. Jason Walter.
Hi, Laura. This is Kelly Turner in for Jason today, calling in from Heartland.
Thank you. Kyle Rora. And Tom Frazier.
Yeah, hi, I'm here from Hazlet, Michigan. And just a quick note, I will be in and out of the meeting today because I've got another meeting that conflicts.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's have a look, make sure we've got everybody else acknowledged who's on. Maybe we can start with the folks who are on the phone. Phone number ending in 55. If you can just let us know who you are. And if you're on the phone, sometimes usually *6 is what gets you to unmute.
Sorry, John Steers, citizen, Kalamazoo.
Okay, thanks, John. How about phone number ending in 16?
Hey, Laura, that's me, Kelly Turner.
Oh, okay.
I'm joining by phone in case I lose video.
Gotcha. Phone number ending in 53.
That's me. I'm calling in. Dave Hamilton.
Oh, okay, okay. And then phone number ending in 00.
It's not like Lottie, just listening in because my video's not great.
Thank you. And phone number ending in number 66.
That's me, Kelly. It's Buddy Sebastian. Sorry, Laura.
Gotcha. No problem. Thank you for acknowledging that. Okay, so we've also got and the rest of you folks, as I understand, and Jim, please correct me if I'm wrong on this. We don't need to know your location. I'm just going to read off your names for the recording so that we've got acknowledgement of everybody who's here. I've got Micah Lamo, Jeremiah Asher, Carolyn Lethan. We've got Christine Spitzley, Clyde Dugan, Laura Dowd, Abby Eaton, Emily Finnell, Chris Gothberg, Grant Poole, Ralph Hefner, Joel Henry, Clay Jupery, Dave Lush, Mark Seaman, Mike Frederick, we had you earlier, Jim Milne. Let's see, Rachel, you had already noted that you're here. Nathaniel Schuff, Taylor Ritterbush, Ben Terrell, Todd Feenstra, and I see another indicator here that says that it's guest and is unidentified. Is there somebody whose name I haven't called yet? I'm hearing none on that, so I think that is our roll call. Okay, thanks everybody. Appreciate your patience on that. I know this isn't as easy as when we meet in person, but this helps us out to make sure that we've got accurate recording for everybody who's here. Next part of the agenda, I'm going to ask if anyone has any changes or recommended suggestions for things to add to our agenda for today. And Jim, I don't know if you've got a slide with the agenda on it. Maybe we can put that up real quick. Thank you. All right, any changes or adjustments that you need to make to the agenda? All right, hearing none. I'm also going to ask folks to take a look at the minutes from our previous meeting, which was held on December 15th, 2020. And let me know if there are any changes or additions or edits that you need to make to those minutes.
Laura, this is Doug Needham. Page 3, bullet number 9. The very first committee, it's called the date collection committee. So
good catch. Thank you. We'll make sure and make that adjustment. Any other changes, edits, things that you need to add to the previous meeting minutes? All right, we will make that change to the minutes and then get those posted on the website. Thanks, everybody. At this time, what we'll do is we'll ask for public comment on our agenda items. You'll notice that this is kind of the way that we usually run this. We have 2 opportunities for public comment. The first comes before the main body of our discussion, and it has to do with agenda items. We'll also have another public comment opportunity after sort of the main body of the discussion to allow sort of open comments on non-agenda related items. So does anyone have any comments they need to make on our agenda items for today?
I'd like to make a comment if you're ready for it.
Absolutely.
John Steers, Kalamazoo. And hopefully this is in keeping with the agenda comment allowances. The problem I see, and first of all, start off with thanking the administration in power at the current time for finally allowing this process to be a true transparent process. I think you're working very hard on it, and these Zoom meetings are really helping us out here in the public, and us that are people that are disadvantaged, they can't be in Lansing or wherever that you may meet. I encourage you folks to make this a regular part of what you do each and every day. We're pretty much last in the nation in terms of transparency in Michigan. And I really like what you're doing to try to finally make the public a part of this process. The agenda that is put out, unfortunately, I think could be a little bit more descriptive. So in other words, on each of the things that I see, on the website where we have a few things under each item where it helps. But when we only have a certain amount of time to comment on agenda items, if the agenda is not more detailed, it's very difficult for us to comment and kind of get the ball rolling, and for you to know what the public is saying at any given time as you bring forward, obviously, what you have to say. The Zoom recording for last month was not put up on the website. This also does not allow us to bring forward things that may have happened at the last meeting that may be on, for example, as I'm talking now on an agenda item. It gives us no context. It's extremely important, and it's something that has been basically across the state. Every single township or government agency that I've ever run into so far does not want these Zoom meetings recorded. Quite similar to when I showed up to a WAC meeting years ago, where everybody was aghast that I was going to record the meeting. And was saying, "Oh, you can't do that. Nobody will say what they want to say." So I'm very much impressed with the fact that you folks are recording those meetings, and hopefully that was just missed. I think it would be helpful also to put 3 minutes or whatever the time limit is on the agenda, so people know exactly how much time that they have, and to on the agenda to say that it's an agenda item first, public comment, and for the instead of open comments, make it public commentary, non-agenda items. I think that would help us as well. And thank you very much for your time.
Laura, this is Jim Milne. Just to note, the recording for the December 15th, 2020 meeting has been closed captioned, and we will get that posted in the next day or so on the council's website. So apologize for the delay there.
Appreciate it very much.
All right. Well, thanks, John. Appreciate your comments there. Does anyone else have any comments about agenda items? This is where I learn patience for all those long, awkward pauses to make sure everybody has time to unmute. All right, I am hearing no other comments. Again, we'll have another opportunity for public comment, agenda or not, coming up at the end of the meeting. But the next part of our agenda is going to be to talk about next steps after submission of our 2020 legislative report. So number one, I just want to say thanks again to everyone for all of the hard work that you put into creating that report. This is something that's going to be very, very important, and is going to be a model for how we're going to communicate with the legislature in the future. So everybody did fantastic work, fantastic collaboration, good communication. I think that was really very much a team effort to get that done. To make sure that everybody's aware, we did send that report out on December 23rd because we did have the obligation to send it within 2 years of the enacting legislation, which was signed on December 28th. So we squeaked in under that deadline. we also sent the report out again on January 26th, and that's to make sure that we got this into the inboxes of new committee chairs, and also to make sure that our legislative leaders, both in the House and the Senate, were aware that, number one, the report was submitted and is out there, and that number two, that sets us up for kind of discussion on next steps that we want to take in terms of following up on support for this report. Because obviously this isn't something that we want to just have sit on a shelf, right? This actually has recommendations for legislative budget measures and money that's got to be committed in order for all of these recommendations to be done. So I can tell you, since Brian Burrows isn't here today, this was one of the things that he was involved with in the discussion that the executive committee had in its meeting. What was that, just last week? I think that was just last week. It seems like about a month ago. In which one of the things that we have thought would be a good next step is, now that the report has been sent out to those committee chairs and to those legislative leaders, that we want to reach out personally and obviously with COVID restrictions, this will be by phone call instead of personal visit, but to ask the Majority Leader and Speaker how they would like to proceed in terms of hearing more detail about that report. Do they want to have joint hearings between the legislative bodies and those committees? Do they want us to go straight to the appropriations committees? We'll need some guidance from the legislature on how they would like to handle that, as well as how they would like to interact between the council and the department on figuring out kind of how this piece fits into the budgetary request that comes from the department, in which they have to submit on a very rigid schedule. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure and bring up to this group is that as we take these steps, we need to figure out, we're going to be testifying to somebody, and we're going to figure out what that is, whether it's appropriations or whether it's these joint Natural Resource and Environment committees for the House and the Senate, or some other configuration that the legislature lets us know that they want to do. The big thing that we need to figure out from this council is, how would you guys like to be involved in advocating for and supporting those report recommendations? And this can come in the form of, hey, I want to be there to testify, or I want to kind of keep my hands off of it, or and just send in a support letter, or what are the steps that you and your organizations that you're representing want to take as we follow up with the legislature? And I want to open that up for a little bit of discussion, if you guys don't mind.
Hi, Laura. This is Taylor Ritterbush from Trout Unlimited. You can sign Brian and I up for, testifying as well as doing meetings. We'll be happily involved in all the different aspects of that.
And Taylor, can I put you on the spot a little bit and ask you if there's anything that I missed in terms of what you're aware of that Brian had in mind for follow up with the legislative leadership?
No, that was perfect. That's basically what we had discussed coming into this meeting. So yeah, I think just getting in touch with leadership and the committee chairs to make sure that we're working through the process the way that the legislature wants it to go would be a good place to start.
All right, thanks, Taylor. Other thoughts or other people interested in either testifying, or have you got other ideas or specific things you'd like to recommend?
Yeah, Laura, this is Michael Imo with Michigan Chamber.
Hey, Mike.
Thanks for the opportunity. Yes, we would like to be supportive, particularly around, appropriation asks that I think will help really improve the data stream. And so I don't know that we're the best to maybe testify, but I'm certainly happy to put cards of support in where appropriate, those types of things, and then absolutely planning to connect with legislative leaders on that front as well. So count us in for that also.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Other thoughts, discussion? I see somebody's got a hand raised. Who's that? Oh, John Yelich.
Yep. Michigan Geologic Survey, to at least address the geologic portion.
All right. Thank you. I was hoping you were going to be on the list, since what, about 3/5 of that ask is is for those projects, and it's a really, really important part of that ask. All right. Other discussion or thoughts that people have? Are you interested in testifying, or are you interested in taking other actions as we follow up on this?
Hey, Laura, this is Kelly Turner. I imagine that we would be supportive either way in both efforts, either letters of support and or testifying. I don't know if we're going to be limited on time, and so if it behooves us to have people in person kind of testifying against some of the things that might be more technical and more difficult for the legislators to wrap their heads around, and then providing letters of support for some of those less technical items might be a strategy we want to think about employing.
That's a good suggestion, and we don't have a good indicator yet as to how much time we're going to have, or how much into the weeds the legislators are going to want to go. We've got to get some feedback from the speaker and the majority leader on how they would like to have those conversations. But that's a good thought, that if we've got to be prioritized for time, how do we parse that out? Other thoughts, or folks who want to make sure that we know that they want to be engaged?
Laura, this is Dave Hamilton. For the Nature Conservancy, Madhu Anderson and Rich Willman will be the ones that will be handling the legislative contacts. So, and TNC will be supportive, especially of the Michigan Hydrologic Framework.
All right, thank you.
Laura, this is Dave Lush.
Hi, Dave.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good.
It's implicit that we had consensus among all the stakeholder groups represented by the council with the report, but from a political point of view, would it just be good policy to have all of the stakeholder groups write letters of support to the various committees, just so we've got a file, so to speak, when those committees have their hearings?
I think that's a good suggestion, Dave, and maybe that's something that that we can develop, either kind of a template or something to send out to all the folks who are partnering on this, and give them the opportunity to submit a letter of support to help build that, show the strength of that consensus. So that's a good idea. Thank you.
And also, I authored 2 of the recommendations. I'm perfectly willing to let the executive committee do the testifying, if, because of not wanting to have a crowd of people there. Sometimes that gets unwieldy. But if you need a technical spokesperson, I would certainly be willing to lend my testimony.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. Yeah, and this is kind of tough to figure out what they're going to want, because normally I would say everybody better plan to show up at whatever date this joint hearing is going to be, and we're going to pack that hearing room, and it's going to be nothing but people who have worked on the on the legislative report, who are ready to stand up and testify, in support of funding these recommendations. But we'll have to see what that looks like now that we're still fighting our way through COVID era. So thanks, Dave. Other thoughts, or other people who want to make sure that we've got them in mind for
Laura,
support?
Yeah, Laura, this is Tom from MEC. I will, if it's helpful, I can do like a sign-on letter with other Enviro groups and members of the council, and then we can submit that, just kind of to address that side of the contingency.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Laura, I'll add, for the benefit of others, that our conversation, that I'm more than willing to be supportive in a role, whether it's attending, testifying, or drafting letters of support, as we discussed in an executive meeting.
All right, thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else who wants to make sure that we've got them on a list of being of wanting to have some engagement or other ideas that you've got, or making sure we've got you on the list that you're interested in testifying if we have that opportunity?
This is Frank Edowagishik, and I'm not, I don't think it'd be good for me to testify because I'm representing all the different tribal governments, and I would need to have one of the tribal leaders that would do that. If that's the case, we are having a meeting sometime soon, and actually on the 18th, and I can put this to the leaders and see what they may wish to do. But it's quite likely that we'd be able to submit a letter of support. So I just to let you know that, and I'm certainly we are in contact with various members of the state legislature pretty regularly, so we're able to help promote this in that way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. Appreciate it.
Hey, Laura, this is
Dave
Kelly.
Flush again. Because we have new members of the legislature, I would be willing, if the executive committee believes it's necessary, to help draft and present or send a overview of what the heck the water use program is, how it came to be, all that sort of stuff, to get them up to speed before we hit them with these largely technical recommendations.
I appreciate that offer. Thanks, Dave. We'll take a look at what we need to make sure is in their hands. Kelly, was that you also wanting to make a comment?
Yeah, it was me again.
Okay, thank you.
I might be putting him on the spot, but also, I'm trying to go through in my brain all of our technical committee members that really put a lot of time and work into the data and the modeling. And so don't shoot me, but Todd Feenstra, would you be available to testify as well?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that if it's needed.
All right. Well, thanks to you both. I appreciate that. Other folks who want to make sure we know that you're interested, engaged, or anybody have any additional ideas in terms of follow-up for reaching out to the legislature? All right. Well, I think what our next action items are going to be for this then is that we'll work on getting a hold of the speaker and the majority leader and kind of finding out their preference for how they would like to operate next steps of doing any kind of testimony or what kind of hearings they would like to have and before which committees. And we will keep you guys in the loop and let you know what we find out. Also sounds like it would be a good idea for us to develop sort of a template to send out to all the partners for a letter of support that you can obviously change and do with what you want, but just, to kind of give you a starting place. I know when I get asked for a letter of support, it helps for me to have something to work off of. So we'll also work on putting that together and getting that sent out to the groups so that you can take it back to your organizations and discuss that. And if that's something that you're able to provide that letter of support, then we've got those already in our hands as we prepare for those next steps. So those are the two things that we'll make sure to get done and let you guys know how those turn out. Any questions about that before we move on to our next agenda items?
This is Frank Edowagishik. I have a question.
Yeah, Frank.
Have we given any thought to the process for how we'll approach when we do testify and we do these things? We may get some questions both during and then after the testimony. Have we given any thought to a process for how we're going to handle dealing with providing additional information?
That's a good question, Frank, and I can tell you quite honestly, I haven't given a whole lot of thought to that yet. I mean, I think it's probably going to depend a little bit on what kind of questions are they going to ask us. If it's stuff that that we need to make sure and let the department lead on answering, because it's things about like how are you going to assign staff to this, or what FTEs do you need, or how is the budget going to fit into your other budgetary asks, then that's probably something that we need to make sure that the department can answer. If it's stuff that either the council members or some of our technical advisors who have been really helpful to us can do a better job explaining, maybe that's something that either we'd have the opportunity while we're there in a hearing to answer that, or would be able to follow up by phone or email afterwards. So I think it's probably going to kind of depend on what the question is and who's the best one to answer it. Other questions or thoughts before we move on?
It's probably worthwhile noting, Laura, that while we have submitted the report, we haven't received any feedback or questions yet as of last week. I don't know if you've seen anything new.
Correct. No, I haven't seen anything new either.
Okay.
And I think that we'll probably get a lot more of that once once we reach out to the speaker and majority leader and ask them for what next steps they would like to take.
Yes.
Hey, Laura, this is Rachel Proctor with Consumers Energy.
Hey, Rachel.
The letter, the draft letter template for support, are you planning to send that to everybody within the council?
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
those
I figure we'll send it out to the whole mailing list. I mean, this mailing list obviously goes out to not only all the council members, but everybody else who's signed up for wanting to hear information about it. So I mean, I think that list is over 100 people long.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure that we were on
Yep.
it. So
Yep. If you're getting the agenda and the meeting information, you'll get a copy of this letter template.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Rachel. Any other questions? All right, I am hearing none. So I think at this point, I turn it over to Brian and we'll continue on for the rest of our agenda items. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Laura. So the next segment of our meeting is focused on reports from our committee chairs, and we're going to start off with the data collection committee. Tom, are you with us?
Yeah, sorry, Brian, my Teams app is like forever minimized, so I was trying to find it again. Sorry about that. Yeah, not a huge number of updates here. We did have our first committee meeting of the year this morning, trying to kind of chart out what we need to do, not only related to the requests in the budget or in the 2020 report, but also kind of just like in the interim while we're waiting to figure out how much funding or any funding that we might get. What are some things we still need to be working on, kind of in preparation of that. So really kind of early on in that process, probably looking to have another meeting come March to kind of hammer that out a little bit more. I guess another just kind of call to folks. I know on the phone call this morning, we talked about a lot of overlapping topics between the data committee and the modeling committee moving forward, and especially as we think about kind of new data acquisition, but also like how to integrate that data into the SSR process and other databases that the state may undertake. Certainly a lot of overlap there. So if there's anybody that wants to be involved in data that isn't already, please just reach out and I will include you on the email list for that.
Okay, great. Any questions of Tom? Hearing none. Next up, our implementation committee. And Doug or Laura, I don't know who's taking the lead here.
Well, I'll start and Laura can kind of fill in here. So as we go into this new year, and now that the report has been submitted, we're trying to figure out what is the role of the implementation committee. At the beginning, it was kind of to collect all of the past recommendations to help corral them into buckets and to get those to committees, and so that we have a roadmap moving forward, which we have in the report. But now we're trying to figure out, short of having a response from the legislature, what is the implementation? Do we continue to look back and say, well, there's other items that did not make it into the report, and to kind of just summarize those and keep them in a queue? Does this committee shift a little bit to help maybe organize some of the lobbying efforts to try to get funding for the initiatives, kind of in prep for the meeting or after the meeting, the presentation that takes place? So really, this is more of an open discussion for the full council, is maybe what role would you guys like to see this committee morph into?
Well, I like the idea of maybe, playing some lobbying strategy out, Doug. I think that's a good idea.
So what we'll do is we will convene a meeting with our committee members and try to figure out, kind of get a roadmap for something that we can do to help promote and push this to get it to implementation. And that's kind of that continuing theme of what our subcommittee is called.
Good.
I guess I'll add to that too, and I know this is going to be a topic that's going to come up later in the agenda in terms of members for the committee. But I mean, there's a lot of us who kind of have divided out roles in terms of, this person does technical stuff, this person does lobbying stuff. I guess one of the things that I would want to make sure of is that if the strategy that the implementation committee is going to follow is really going to be to kind of guide that lobbying strategy, I would want to make sure that we open up the availability to attend these meetings by other people in your organizations if you feel like they're the ones who really ought to be engaged in that lobbying strategy, or other folks who have an interest in and have the ability to engage with those legislators, that we make sure that we're looping you in on this and not not failing to take advantage of the best connections that we have within this group. So we'll continue to discuss that and figure out how best to get that done. So thanks.
Brian, John Yelich here.
Yeah, John.
Laura did a much better job of painting it. My suggestion was to be after the XCOM meets with the legislative directors, the House and the Senate directors, that they may have some indications of where we need to go, and that's how we would try and identify. But I think that you're the ones that are probably going to get some indication, I hope, of where they see that needs to be a better understanding of where people need to be. So thank you, Laura. You did a better job than I did.
Anybody else? Questions or comments for Doug? Thank you, Doug. I think that's it from the implementation committee. Next up, Dave or Jim, leading the models committee discussion.
Yes, this is Jim Nicholas, above sea level, not like Dave. And because of communication issues, I'm going to do that today. I will say that I think it was Brian Burrows who said he was in Saginaw at elevation of 520 feet. That's about 55 feet below Lake Huron. So you're getting close to where Dave is with respect to sea level. All right. So Dave presented the topics that we're pursuing in the Models Committee for 2021 at our last meeting, and I think everyone has had a chance to look at those. We're not doing all of those at once. The things that are kind of capturing our attention right now are we have a new we have a work plan from Todd Feenstra on the Cass County model that we're going to have some discussions on. There's some emails going around on availability of dates to do that. So we're moving along on that. We're also Dave and I have had some discussions on aquifer, excuse me, test guidelines. We got a response back from the department in December. So we're going to move forward with discussions with Eagle staff on that. And then Dave is gathering together a group to look at the half-max rule and whether and how and when to pursue addressing that. That's it. Any questions?
Laura, your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks. Jim, I just kind of wanted to check in with you, and I probably should have asked this same question of the data committee. And so Tom, I would ask you to maybe weigh in if you have any thoughts about this as well. Have you guys done a lot of thinking about in terms of new projects that you're working on or new topics that you're taking on, whether any of them are dependent upon stuff being implemented from the 2020 report versus, hey, this is new independent stuff that, that doesn't, we aren't waiting for a budgetary answer on that. We're just moving forward on this because it's new.
I don't believe, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I don't think any of the things that we put on that 1 or 2 page document for our 2021 topics rely upon receiving funding from the legislature to continue with those topics. Is that right, Dave?
That's correct. That's correct. So everything that's on that list that we sent out, we intend to do. Obviously, if we get funding, we will add to the list following up on things get approved for funding.
Yeah, Laura, from the data side of it, I mean, certainly the Michigan Hydro framework was a big piece of what our recs were. This morning, we also talked about things like data acquisition protocols and as well as moving forward on some of the inland lake questions and concerns that have been raised over the last couple of years. And those issues we're going to we'll be working on regardless of funding. I think the only one that sounded more dependent on that is the framework, but I would certainly ask Dave Hamilton to correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
Okay, thanks.
Sounds like you were right. Any other questions or comments for Jim? Jim, thank you very much. Next up, our new topics committee. Pat or Jason going to lead this?
I can give an update on this. Jason, you can add on if you have anything, but we've been in as I mentioned at our last meeting, we're just kind of in a holding pattern until a new topic gets sent our way. I guess that's the purpose of this committee. Everything else has been dealt with. Our water users group was the last thing that we were working on, and Emily has been working with a Michigan Sea Grant to get a study done. So if she wants to provide an update, I suppose we could get an update on that, but I think that's really all there is to report on this committee.
Any questions for Pat? Emily?
I just wanted to ask if you want me to give an update now on the status of the request for proposals with Michigan Sea Grant. I was planning to do just a quick update during the Eagle update Jim Milne asked for at that time, but I'm happy to do whatever the council wishes.
Let's push it back to Milne's segment, Emily. We're moving right along here, so.
Sounds good.
Hold on just a second. Pat, thank you very much. Unless there's other questions or comments for the new topics committee. Hearing none, thank you. Our newest committee, Conservation and Efficiency Committee.
Hi, everybody. We have actually been quite
busy over the last couple of months. We've had 2 meetings since December. At our first meeting in January, we really took a look and reviewed the committee membership to identify gaps. And thus we've added some new members to kind of round out the committee and get started. So we've added Michael Limo from the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, Marilyn Thalen and Lyndon Kelly from MSU Extension. From Eagle, we added Chad Rogers, Kelly Green, and Julie Stavlin. And Rachel Proctor from Consumers Energy has joined us as well. So some of the first things that we did was we developed an annual plan of work for ourselves, and it revolves around the recommendations that we submitted last year. So for the Advancing Michigan's Water Conservation and Efficiency Efforts through State Climate, Energy, and Water Infrastructure Initiative, that's a mouthful, don't say that 10 times fast. We kind of took a look at those action items, and we pulled out some things to identify for the Fellows Project, because we are so excited to announce that due to Emily's efforts, we have received the Dow Fellows Project grant, and Emily is has scheduled a kickoff meeting with that group. I think she's going to be meeting with them on February 11th with the team that was assigned to us. So we really thought we really needed, before that meeting, to narrow the scope of the project. So we did pull some specific components out of that recommendation, and the group decided that we would like the fellows to review federal programs, gather information from water-rich states, while also looking for new, innovative, and technological approaches to water conservation and efficiency. Some other ideas that were floated out there were possibly having the fellows take a look through the Office of the Great Lakes report and kind of pull out some initiatives that are in there that really would fit well within our repertoire. So they are going to have a timeline to us by mid-February, and so we'll really work to hone in on that final scope of work by mid-March, and then projects are completed in a 12-month timeline. So that means that they would wrap up December of 2021. We would have that information. So I'm really excited for that, because Emily put a lot of work into that proposal, and we were lucky enough to be able to nab a group and not have to wait for funding to come from the state. So
congratulations.
Yes, so let's take a break right there. Everyone congratulate Emily with either a high five, a hand raise, or something, because that was a pretty big deal.
That is great. That's awesome, Emily. Great job. All right.
I love it. I love the hands up. Thanks, guys.
All right. That's great. That's the first time I recall real money coming in. So that's a good thing.
Yes, and it was all Emily's work. Like I think she was the single-handed superwoman on that one. So moving along to the ag efficiency recommendation, we formed a subcommittee within our committee to kind of try to pull together a background or briefing with the USDA, since they were listed as one of the groups that were going to pull that recommendation off. We thought, hey, I want to circle back with them and actually involve them in the process. So that's kind of where we're starting with that. We tried to determine what the best approach was for increasing our own committee's knowledge and awareness about what current programs are out there for water conservation and efficiency practices. And so we, as a group, created a list of speakers and topics that we plan to weave into our monthly meetings. So our monthly meetings are the first Thursday of the month from 9 to 10:30 a.m. And so they have been scheduled out through December. Some of the possible future topics that we have include utility home audit programs, which also would include promotion and data that informs those processes, the My Healthy Climate Plan, utility companies' efforts to conserve water during power generation, and climate and energy projects, as well as green community partners, tribal representatives, and the AWWA water audits and process. So once we actually have those dates finalized and commitments, we'll make sure we share that with the full committee, and we're happy to make sure that you guys are included if you want to attend some of those and grab some of that education that we're providing for our group. We also took some time to review and want to provide some input into the Michigan Water Conservation and Efficiency Program annual program assessment. We're not quite sure how we're going to do that yet, but that is one of the things that are in our work plan. We are also starting conversations about determining the approach to the process for having each water user sector review their gaps, provide edits, and ensure that they're up to date. So, and maybe even provide some committee comments. We will also undertake opportunities to look at new technologies that build infiltration capacities and recharge capacity. Kind of some ancillary things that y'all might want to have on your calendar. The Great Lakes and Freshwater Week is June 5th through the 13th this year. And there is also a Water Leak Week, which is March 16th through the 22nd of this year. If you didn't know about those, don't feel bad. I had no idea either. But the group definitely felt there was an opportunity to promote messaging to the public at these times we're already kind of themed along those messages. And we're going to get an update from Emily in March about some planning and some ideas that she has with some other folks she's been meeting with. So that's what I have for a report. Emily, I'm going to let you step in here to whatever I missed or whatever I got wrong, you can fix.
No, that was great, Kelly. Just one clarification, as part of the Dow Fellows project, they'll be looking at the 5-year program reviews for all of the jurisdictions under the Great Lakes Compact and Agreement that just submitted their 5-year program reviews that were approved through the period of 2019. So part of those reports are an assessment of their water conservation and efficiency programs, and there's some really rich information in those reports about some new initiatives going on in the region. I will say that each of the Dow Fellows gets a $20,000 stipend through their participation in the program. So there are 5 students that are part of that project team. So we're really excited to be working with them. I'm also working closely with Nina Sasse, our Clean Water Public Advocate, our Office of Climate and Energy, Brandy Brown, and Julie Stavelin, who's in our Material Management Division, who's working with all the climate, energy, and sustainability programs. So lots of good things to come from that. That's all I had.
Great report, Kelly and Emily. This wasn't even in our radar screen, Emily, when you brought it to the table, and that you just went out and executed. That's a beautiful thing. Thank you very much. And welcome to the new blood in the Conservation Committee and all the new people. So appreciate that greatly. Any questions for Emily or Kelly? See somebody's hand up. Laura, did you have your hand up? Yeah.
I do. Thanks. I was just wondering if when you send out those invitations to some of the educational stuff that you're going to be doing, could you send links to some of the reports that you were just mentioning, particularly with the water conservation and efficiency plans under the states that are reporting to the Compact Council?
Sure. I'm actually putting together a list of resources for the students so that they kind of have some easy access to those, but I'd be happy to do that. And they should be posted to the Compact Council and the Regional Body website. I have to double check though, because some of the approved documents are not on there yet from the December 2020 meeting.
Yeah, I know they're not super speedy, so that's why I was wondering. It's like, if you got it already, that'd be nice to get a copy.
I think
or a
it's
link or something.
I think it's 380 pages long.
Oh, boy.
I've read them multiple times, so kudos to anyone else who wants to read through them all.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Laura. Kelly, your hand is up.
Yep, thanks, Brian. This might sound like it's Celebrate Emily Day, but I do want to bring to everyone's attention is she kind of talked about the different meetings she's having with different departments and groups. And honestly, I think that is going to be key to the success of this group and any of the initiatives we move forward, because it seems like it's pretty easy for different departments and agencies to work in silos, right? Like we put our heads down, we put our blinders on, we know what our task is and we move forward. But a lot of times there's duplication of work, or someone else is starting a very similar initiative and there's no communication there. So I'm sure you all can understand the tremendous amount of work and time and intentionality that it takes on Emily's behalf to make sure that all of these different stakeholders are kept in the loop and up to date. And those meetings take a lot of time. And so I, for one, am really appreciative of her commitment to that, and really her special talent in making sure that we're pulling in that information from all of those different places and not just duplicating work and kind of going through the motions. Like, she really has her heart in the right place and is dedicated to making sure that we have some really good output from the time that we're spending here. So
thanks, Kelly. Appreciate your comments.
I owe you a cake or something. I don't know.
Well earned, Emily. Well earned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments for either Kelly or Emily? Hearing none, Mr. Milne, I believe that you are up next in leading our Eagle update.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. The next segment here is going to be the program update for Eagle. And Emily, I apologize, I left you off my outline, but why don't you go first and share your information, then I'll get into the water use program details.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. I'll try to be brief. Happy to report to the council that we were able to successfully partner with Michigan Sea Grant to co-fund the water user's manual and a series of case studies. Sea Grant issued their request for proposals for their integrated assessment research projects and included this topic as one of those integrated assessment topics on January 8th. So the pre-proposals are due for that process on March 15th at 5 p.m. And they do have a deadline for comments. If you have questions about the RFP, which I was just looking at their website, which is actually February 15th. So I just wanted to mention that. Their process includes a pre-proposal and then a full proposal stage. So once they receive pre-proposals, I'm serving as the policy advisor, and then Mark Breederlin is with Michigan Sea Grant, and he is the Sea Grant contact. Once they receive the pre-proposals, they'll get into the full proposal stage. And at that point, I'll be working more directly with the applicants to help kind of guide them and what we're looking for, so that it's more in line with what we'd like to see related to the Water Use Advisory Council's recommendation that was approved in the 2020 report, and make sure that that application is going to meet the department's needs. So our plan at this point is approximately a $350,000 budget. Sea Grant is matched the Michigan Great Lakes Protection Fund, which is administered through the Office of the Great Lakes. Ours $175,000 with an additional $175,000, and then they'll go through the Sea Grant rigorous scientific review process, and then it has to be approved. Any applications that are submitted for funding through the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, and then they'll do announcements for projects later this fall. The actual grant period for the project would start in February of 2022, and they're for 2-year periods for those projects. So the project would actually be from February 2022 to January 2024. So that's kind of the time frame that's laid out right now. We're hoping to see some really strong proposals that will be submitted under the RFP, and excited to see how this process will unfold. So it's been a really good partnership so far, and I'll keep the council posted as we move forward through the Sea Grant process.
Very good. Excellent.
Okay, thanks, Emily. So for my portion, I'm going to start off by providing updated metrics for program year 12 that runs from July 9th, 2020 through January 2021. I'm also going to provide updated cumulative metrics for program years 1 through 12, that's 2009 through 2021. The program year for Part 327 water use program runs from July 9th to July 8th of the following calendar year. I'm also going to update you on the status of depleted water management areas and give you updated metrics for compliance actions and pre-screening reviews. As of February 3rd, 2021, 386 large quantity withdrawals had been authorized through the tool, and another 104 withdrawals were authorized through SSRs. Our SSR timeliness metrics has slipped somewhat, which reflects our being down 2 SSR staff and having received a slug of new SSR requests over the winter. But I'm happy to say the hiring freeze has been lifted, and I'm working with HR to get those 2 vacancies posted as soon as we can. So the average number of business days from receipt of a site-specific review during this period was 10.9 business days, and we were able to complete 70% of the SSRs within the statutory deadline of the 10 business days. These next 2 graphs show the cumulative trends over time for the average number of business days on the top and the percent of SSRs completed within the 10 business day deadline on the bottom there. Our timeliness trends are starting to level off somewhat, but hopefully when we get the new staff on board and up to speed, we'll continue those trends in the right direction. Water management areas outlined in red are currently in Zone D, meaning that there's a potential for an adverse resource impact based on our cumulative stream flow depletion tracking balance. Macatawa River Water Management Area 4135 there in southwest Ottawa, very northern portion of Allegan County there. That's outlined in black because that water management area falls within that zone where the council had recommended proposing to increase the default aquifer storage coefficient. And that's the status as of February 1st, 2021. The allowable depletion column there in the middle is the maximum allowable depletions based on the stream temperature classification. For example, 4% of the index flow is available for a cold transitional stream versus warm stream can be depleted up to 24% of the index flow. And again, like I said, Macatawa River Water Management Area 4135 is outlined in black because that happens to be in the area of the state where the council recommendation recommended increasing the default aquifer storage coefficient. Compliance metrics from November 20th, 2020, which was the last report I gave to the council, through January 2021. We sent out 90 amended registrations, 52 after the fact registrations, 21 missing pump information, and requested verification of installation of withdrawals for 15. 3 first violation notices. We didn't send out any second violation notice, and we did closed one violation after it came back into compliance, and received 2 complaints during this time period. Amended registrations are for large quantity withdrawals that were installed and or operated differently than what was authorized by either the tool or a site-specific review when we have enough stream flow available to authorize the as-built, as-operated characteristics there. Abby, you've got a question?
Yeah, what were the nature of the complaints?
Those are not 317 Aquifer dispute resolutions. Hannah, if you're on, you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here, but they were more on the nature of somebody complaining about their pond being affected by construction dewatering. It's the one that stands out in my mind.
Yes, so both of them were complaints about direct withdrawals from ponds. I believe one was for a bluebird farm and the other might have been just for random irrigation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. When we talk about an after the fact registration, those, when we discover a previously unregistered withdrawal, if there's no stream flow to authorize it, then we go ahead and issue an after the fact registration. The missing pump information, that's when you come across a well log where it's missing, like it says, it's missing the pump information. So we need to contact the property owner and or the well driller and get the missing pump capacity information that we need to figure out the depletions caused by that well. Oftentimes that's a result of the property owner deciding, or some other party installing a pump well after the well driller completed the installation of the well. We also do pre-screening reviews for proposed public water supplies. Essentially, that's the equivalent of doing a site-specific review for a proposed community water supply, typically wells, although it could be a surface water withdrawal. This is for the period November 1st, 2020 through January 31st, 2021. We passed 8 of those pre-screening requests, didn't deny any, and 1 was retracted by the applicant. So are there any other questions? Yes, Laura.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for that, and that's really good news that you guys got the authorization to start backfilling some of those positions that you're missing. I'm glad to hear that. I wanted to ask if I can get a little bit more detail about, as you're talking about SSRs, and kind of looks like the main body of them there, you're able to resolve pretty quickly. But of the ones that you're not, can you talk a little bit more about like timelines? How long are those taking? What's your what you're working with those applicants on, or give us a little bit more detail about kind of what's going on with those longer term SSRs?
Sure, I can give you an example of a bunch. We had 5, I think. Nat can update the numbers, but we had Spring Meadow Nursery in Ottawa County had a number of site-specific reviews that took longer to complete, in part because we weren't able to authorize the SSRs as originally proposed. So the consultant went out and collected additional data. They did some aquifer parameter characterizations and streambed conductance data collection, but Nat was also working with the consultant and the property owner to look at their water use, look at water conservation and adjusting. They had a number of previous withdrawals that were baseline capacity, so they were able to swap out some of that baseline capacity to authorize some of the new withdrawals. So that's one example of SSRs that took longer than the 10 days. Another example would be if we have to do a perennial versus non-perennial stream determination, where we're trying to go out and figure out whether a given stream reach in question is in fact perennial, meaning it has flow year-round, which is what the groundwater analytical models require. Or if it turns out that they're non-perennial, then those reaches are truncated and we have to recalculate the depletions.
Okay, I guess to follow up on that, because I know that you guys have worked a lot with consultants and with applicants on, on kind of putting together work plans for how you're going to get through an SSR, and and the information that you need. And I remember that this is a couple years ago now. Eagle was working on kind of a guidance document for how, for what steps you need to take in an SSR and what questions you need to be answering. Is there a plan that the department's going to put out any additional guidance on that, or publish anything that's related to work plans or ways that applicants can get the information that the department needs?
Currently, we have the information guide for large quantity withdrawals, which is posted on our water use webpage. That's a pretty thick document that gets into describing what some of the different options are for additional data collection and some of the pros and cons for each method. We have, as Jim Nicholas noted, we drafted some guidance for aquifer pumping tests, and we got some initial comments from the models committee on that, made some revisions based on those comments, and there's going to be ongoing discussion in the models committee related to that guidance. Jill is also working on additional guidance documents specifically dealing with groundwater models. So that's what we have planned in the short and midterm. If you have if council members have suggestions about other areas where you feel additional guidance is needed, let us know.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Laura. Anybody else have questions of Jim?
Yeah, I've got a comment for Jim. I'm very pleased to see that here we are in year 12 and we still have about 80% of the authorizations are through the tool. That's when we started this, that was our projection as to how we start. But then, thought it would probably go down over time. But to see that we're still there is really pretty amazing, and I think just something that should be highlighted.
Thanks for pointing that out, Dave.
Yeah, those, for the most part, were very good numbers, Jim. Thank you. Anybody else? Jim? Tom? No?
Oops, sorry.
Thank you, Jim. Next on our agenda is to go over next meeting date and formats. Christine, do you want to say anything here?
James is going to cover that for us.
Okay.
Thanks. Appreciate it. So the dates are kind of up on the screen here. Next one is April 13th. For those who have been able to ignore this, our current exemption from the Open Meetings Act runs through the end of March. We'll just monitor that situation going forward. We assume the legislature will readdress it. I can tell you for certain we will not be meeting together in a room on April 13th, so that won't be the resolution of this issue. Assume the meeting will happen, and we'll determine kind of the best way to proceed based on kind of where the legislature goes here. I think that's all I have.
Good, thank you, Jim.
Brian,
yes.
Just to add on to that, to what James mentioned, that we kept the format the same, that members have seen us reserve dates with teams, meeting reservations, just so that our options are open and we can kind of adjust. But we'll be sure and communicate well in advance, so everyone's aware as things kind of keep changing. To James' point, we're going to have to monitor, changes moving forward. But the dates are there, the links are there, so that way we have our dates on the books.
Good. Well, I think it's, it's almost easier for everybody that has to travel to be able to participate in a Zoom meeting. And as we heard from the public earlier, John Sears said, this is a much better venue and more transparent for the public. So there's pros and cons to this venue. Thank you. With that, this is the chance for public comments on open items. Does anybody from the public have any comments they'd like to make?
Yeah, this is John Steers again. If my time, I appreciate it. I'll keep it brief. Whenever. Is anybody hearing me?
Go ahead, John.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Just wanted to put my timer on here so I don't overdo it. When the talk about the lawmakers giving us time to approach them for this whole report that's been submitted, I really encourage everybody who has any kind of sway with them to make them understand that there's not really many things that we'll ever bring forward to them that will be more important than this report that has taken literally years to get to come before them. I really have zero tolerance for anybody taking less than a day, full day, to go through all of this. And the reason there's nothing more important to our children than what you folks and the work that you folks have been doing for all this time. And we have to have some kind of transparency, and I hope this is a part of this platform playing, of what each and every withdraw from this system is. And I don't care where it really comes from, whether it be through Eagle, and I'm not putting down anybody in Eagle or in anybody in these comments, but until we have complete transparency for every LWQ or SSR and every little thing that comes, somebody has to put forward to the government, it wants a part of our resource, then it should be full public knowledge of what's going on. Then we don't have to ask Mr. Milne anything. We say, well, we know all about that conversation. We all know all about what these people are asking for. And I think until we prove to our kids that we, not only whether it be a fracker, a farmer, an industry, a municipality, all of these people are going to be fighting for this resource over the next very short period of time. We're almost in a war pretty much with this, and it's more valuable than gold. Then we will never go anywhere, because it will all this information will be squirreled away someplace, and it'll take FOIAs, it'll take every little thing that we're all familiar with that we really don't need to do. This is pretty much a matter of subtracting and adding water. And I'll end with this. I'll give this as an example. Our big water tower at the corner of I-94 at 131 was put in there basically from a lot of people on this council saying, oh, it's the greatest thing since sliced butter. You go down to that bedrock, you grab that non-depletable water out of there, non-rechargeable water out of there, everything will be fine. We can't get here in Kalamazoo County, we can't get a single piece of data as to what happened there. And everybody drives by every day and they say, gee, what happened? Did that work? Is everything okay? Did, Pfizer and all these other, people that have taken all that water from that, is that good? Well, until we get to the transparency we need in this state, we'll never know. And our kids deserve that. And I'll end with any exemption from the Open Meeting Act that you just referred to, I am totally and 100% against. And I appreciate everybody's comments today, and I hope you have a good week.
John, thank you very much. Anybody else have any public comments today? Laura, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure and put another plug in. Hopefully you guys all received the email that had the list of folks who are on these committees. Christine, I correct me if I'm wrong, I think that did go out to everybody. If you're interested either in joining a new committee, or if there's something that you guys are that you're interested in participating in or want more information on, do make sure and reach out to these committee chairs, and I'll put in the double emphasis on that, particularly considering the implementation committee and the work that they're going to do on kind of fleshing out what that follow-up strategy is for the 2020 report, that we are definitely going to need help. So do reach out to us and let us know ideas that you have and participation that you're interested in engaging in. And that's, I guess, the only other thing I wanted to add to that.
Good.
Hey, thank you, Laura. This is Christine. Yes, I've gotten several emails from people who want to be added or have committee changes like the one that Kelly shared earlier. So if you're a current committee chair and you haven't touched base and you have changes, please let me know, and we'll have Sherry Thalen compile all those and we'll send those out with our next round of minutes from this meeting.
Thanks, Christine. Anybody else from the public want to bring anything to our attention today? Going once, going twice. All right, we are at the 2:28 p.m. and we're open for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, John, thank you. I don't think we have to vote on this one. Thank you all for participating today. That was a quick meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.